At this time, General Sherman was on his way to City Point. His army had stopped in Goldsboro, North Carolina to resupply, leaving him several days to visit Grant, discuss plans for the final push. When Sherman arrived, he and Grant eagerly greeted each other, their hands locked in a cordial grasp. To Horace Porter, their encounter was more like that of two schoolboys coming together after a vacation than the meeting of the chief actors in a great war tragedy. After talking for an hour, they walked down to the wharf and joined the president on the River Queen. Lincoln greeted Sherman with the warmth of manner and expression that the general would long remember, and initiated a lively conversation, intently questioning Sherman about his march from Savannah to Goldsboro. The talk darkened as Sherman and Grant agreed that one more bloody battle was likely to occur before the close of the war. One more bloody battle was likely to occur before the close of the war, Sherman and Grant had agreed upon. They believed Lee's only option now was to retreat to the Carolinas. There, joining forces with Johnston, he would stage a desperate attack against either Sherman or Grant. Must more blood be shed? Lincoln asked. Cannot this last bloody battle be avoided? That was not in their hands, the generals explained. All would depend upon the actions taken by Robert E. Lee. All would depend upon the actions taken by Robert E. Lee. This is Team of Rivals, page 713. The next morning, March 28th. It's a date, 1865. March 28th, 1865. William Tecumseh Sherman and U.S. Grant, accompanied this time by Admiral Porter, returned to the River Queen for a long talk with Lincoln in the upper saloon. With the war drawn to a close, Sherman inquired of Lincoln what was to be done with the rebel armies when defeated, and what should be done with the political leaders such as Jeff Davis. Lincoln replied that all he wanted of us was to defeat the opposing armies and to get the men composing the Confederate armies back to their homes, at work on their farms and in their shops. He wanted no retaliation or retribution. Let them have their horses to plow with, and if you like, their guns to shoot crows with. I want no one punished. Treat them liberally all round. We want those people to return to their allegiance to the Union and submit to the laws. Regarding Jefferson Davis and his top political leaders, Lincoln privately wished they could somehow escape the country, though he could not say this in public. As usual, Sherman recalled, he illustrated his meaning by a story. A man once had taken the total abstinence pledge. When visiting a friend, he was invited to take a drink, but declined on the score of his pledge. When his friend suggested lemonade, the man accepted. In preparing the lemonade, the friend pointed to the brandy bottle and said the lemonade would be more palatable if he were to pour in a little brandy. When his guest said if he could do so unbeknownst to him, he would not object. Go ahead and put that brandy. He had a total abstinence pledge. He wasn't going to drink anymore. I'll get you some lemonade. You want some alcohol? What a shitty friend, too. It's like you shoving damn alcohol down his throat. Motherfucker, I'm not going to drink anymore. You sure you don't want some more drink? I'll put it in your lemonade. Fine. Put it in my lemonade without me knowing about it. Sherman grasped the point immediately. Mr. Lincoln wanted Davis to escape unbeknownst to him. Later that afternoon, Sherman left City Point to return to his troops and prepare for the expected battle. Saying goodbye to the president, he was more than ever impressed by his kindly nature, his deep and earnest sympathy with the afflictions of the whole people, and his absolute faith in the courage, manliness, and integrity of the armies in the field. To be sure, his face was careworn and haggard, but the moment he began to talk, his face lightened up, his tall form, as it were, unfolded, and he was the very impersonation of good humor and fellowship. A decade later, Sherman remained convinced of Lincoln's unparalleled leadership. Of all the men I ever met, he seemed to possess more of the elements of greatness combined with goodness than any other. Lincoln walked to the railroad station early the next morning to bid farewell to Grant. who was heading to the front for what they hoped would be the final offensive against Lee, oppressed by thoughts of the expected battle. Lincoln looked more serious than at any other time since he had visited headquarters, recalled Horace Porter. The lines in his face seemed deeper, and the rings under his eyes were of a darker hue. As the train pulled away from the platform, Grant and his party tipped their hats in honor of the president, returning the salute, his voice broken by an emotion he could ill conceal. Lincoln said, "Goodbye, gentlemen, and God bless you all." As Grant was leaving City Point, Seward was heading south to join Lincoln. I think the president must have telegraphed for him. Wells surmised, and if so, I came to the conclusion that efforts are again being made for peace, and I am by no means certain that this irregular proceeding and importunity on the part of the executive is the wisest course. The Tribune concurred. We presume no person of even average sagacity has imagined that the President of the United States had gone down to the front at such a time as this in quest merely of pleasure or leisure or health even. That he hoped to bring peace with him on his return, the editorial suggested, was too palpable to be doubted. Though Lincoln clearly would have loved to bring peace with him on his return, he went to City Point with no intention of engaging in further negotiations. He had in fact sought a change of air and rest, as well as the chance to escape the unceasing and relentless pressure of visitors. More important, he wanted to underscore his directive that Grant should converse with Lee only with regard to capitulation or solely military concerns. Grant was not to decide, discuss, or confer upon any political questions. Such questions the president holds in his own hands. Lincoln wished to ensure that his lenient policy toward the rebels would not be undercut by a punitive agenda.